Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
The Vegas Take is live, 101.5 FM, 720 AM, K-Dawn. Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro, along with J.D. Sharp on your Wednesday. And we're going to be jumping into a very intriguing topic here because the fact of the matter is this. People are moving to Nevada, folks, and they're coming in droves. I'm in a unique spot here because I happened to move to Orlando, Florida back in the mid-'90s. When I got out of college, I made a beeline down to Florida and for a job opportunity. And Orlando at that time happened to be one of the fastest growing cities in the country. And people can imagine, why that is because of, it's a very high quality of life, let's put it that way, down there in Central Florida. Well, that has become the case here in the, around 2000, back here in the mid 2000s, as they say. And the person that's well-versed in this is going to join us on the show right now. He is Robert Lang. He's the executive director of Brookings Mountain West and a professor at UNLV. When it comes to population growth, this is the man we need to talk to. Robert, really appreciate you spending some time on your Wednesday. Thanks for joining us.
Sure, happy to do so.
So California, look, it's playing an unparalleled role, as it's called in this article. When it comes to Nevada growth, the state population estimates are saying it's going past 3 million people, and the U.S. Census Bureau is ranking the Silver State as the nation's fastest growing in 2018. So when you think about places around the country where people are looking to move, it appears Nevada, and specifically Las Vegas, is one of those places, Robert.
It is indeed. We're near the biggest state in the union in California.
Mm-hmm.
And we have all kinds of cost advantages and tax advantages over the Golden State, which has 40 million people. So it's not, about to be depleted, even if it sends, thousands of people to Nevada. There's plenty of folks left in California, but, it's enough people to really change things in Las Vegas because you really see the impact of the Californians in the housing market. You see them all over the freeways, and they bring, lots of good things in terms of high skills, and a lot of them bring businesses and so on. So it's a net positive in general for the region.
Yeah, because we cover, the sports teams here in town, and you can make a direct parallel, with professional athletes and what the allure of places like Las Vegas, like Nevada, like I believe Texas, as well as Florida, where you don't have a state tax. And it's really about the numbers, right, Dr. Lang? I mean, you're talking about it can be tremendously, beneficial to move to these parts of the country where you're not having to deal with those types of numbers, and particularly when you're coming from a state like California where it is extremely expensive to live.
Well, especially in the last tax change, what happened under Trump's tax cut is that it wasn't really a cut if you were in certain states, because you had the ability in a place like California. Let's say you had a very expensive home with a big mortgage, and you had high income tax because you had a high income, and I mean California income tax because the state charges you income tax there. And you had all that, and what you got to do is deduct that on your federal taxes, all of it, every nickel. And then what happened in the tax change is it was capped at $10,000. So most affluent Californians saw their taxes go up. So a move to Nevada means you lose two things. One, you have much lower land costs, much lower housing costs, lower land taxes, and then you don't have a state income tax. So you end up getting the tax cut if you go to Nevada. You get a tax increase if you stay in a state like California, New Jersey, New York, Illinois. So you're seeing, people from the Northeast, heading back to Orlando where you lived. Mm-hmm. And, in the West Coast, we're that tax haven.
Professor, when I go to the DMV, there's 5 or 6 DMVs in Las Vegas. I'm not exactly sure what the number is, but those things are packed to the brim all day, every day. I have to think that 50,000 moving to Vegas from California is actually a light number. I think it's a lot higher than that. But my question is, are the Californians moving to Vegas also bringing their politics and turning this into a blue state?
Well, we already are, in the sense that if you look at who votes in southern Nevada, and we looked early in this decade, and we had county of birth and then whether or not you're voter eligible. So you can trace somebody's birth county and then say, okay, what state are they voting in now? And there are states like Louisiana where virtually everybody in Louisiana comes from Louisiana who votes in Louisiana currently. But Nevada is a state where the majority of people who actually vote currently in the state come from out of state, and the largest state is California, so that literally, this is true, 3 times the number of people voting in Clark County were born in a California county rather than in a Nevada county.
So if you flip this around, though, the numbers are also kind of interesting, Doctor, because you think about it, Nevada lost, 22,000 plus residents to California, which, by the way, is about 10,000 fewer than 10 years ago in 2009, and apparently it's the lowest number in the last 5 years. So, look, it's not like California doesn't have plenty to offer as well, too. And what is the reason behind that? Why, would we have people that are, making the transition over to California? What are the characteristics?
High-skilled workers to California.
Okay.
Because they have strong employment in tech sectors in the Bay Area and in Southern California in the entertainment industry. So they're attracted. They can afford to live in California. They make the decision that despite the higher cost, the higher housing cost, the taxation, it's a worthwhile move. So they're some of our best citizens that we lose in terms of their skill level.
Still, the California Association of Realtors also brought some interesting numbers out, and you think about this from a housing standpoint. JD, you just bought a home here in the Valley. In October, the median sale price of previously owned single-family homes in Vegas, it was just over $300,000. That's less than half in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is just over $660,000, and 1/5 of in the Bay Area. In the Bay Area. $1.54 million in San Francisco as of September. I can speak to this personally. I have a brother who lives in Berkeley in the Bay Area. I have also a cousin who lives down in Orange County in California. Look, my brother's house in Berkeley, it's not a mansion. It's not gigantic, but it is absolutely expensive. So, you move here to Vegas, you move here to Nevada, and you get a tremendous amount of value for your dollar with respect to purchasing a home, Doctor.
You do. You tend to get a bigger house, too.
Yeah.
So that's not even normalized per square foot. So if you look at new construction in Las Vegas and you see what you can get, not even resale, but new construction against the California existing construction, square foot-wise, it's more than even the price difference. So, you get the third car bay or fourth car bay, things like that. The Californians are intoxicated when they step into the Las Vegas, housing market because they can't believe their eyes. I have lots of contacts in California, and they ask me about my house, and they ask about my neighborhood, and they just shake their heads, and they say, my God, if I could figure out what to do in Vegas, I'd surely be there.
It's funny, JD. Dr. Lang mentioned it in the article. He says, look, it's very hard to migrate from a lower-cost region to a higher-cost region. You could sell a palace in Vegas and wind up in a shack in California. JD, 100%, right? You're talking about...
That's absolutely true. My house...
You could spend millions of dollars in California and not get anything close to what the living standards were.
And a recent article came out that you have to make about $313,000 a year to live comfortably in San Francisco. You have to make about $99,000 a year to live comfortably in Las Vegas, Nevada. Doctor, but the housing market on the flip side of things, it is actually going up, and rent is going up for apartments and houses in Vegas. And do you see that stopping anytime soon?
Yeah, that's the problem. So if you're a homeowner and you want your equity grow, you're a winner from this because it's very often you'd sell your house to a Californian. And so hey, this is great. They're bidding up house costs. If you're a renter, it's a problem because, you don't have equity in the house. You pay it month to month, and that's going up faster than it is in almost any other state.
This is Dr. Robert Lang. He's joining us live here in the Vegas Take. He is the executive director of Brookings Mountain West and also professor at UNLV. We're talking about the population growth here in Nevada and particularly from California. Now, look, this just because there's an influx of people, Doctor, that are coming from California, that doesn't mean that we don't have still large numbers also coming from other parts of the country. This is a city that's extremely dynamic, right? It's one of those cities that is pulling away from that small town. It's a gambling outpost type of feel, and can become much more cosmopolitan and much more intriguing and enticing to people from all over the country.
Yeah, it's surprising. We pick up a lot of people from the Northeast as well.
Yes,
more than you'd guess. given the distance and how far it is to move, you get a decent number of people out of Illinois, and you do that in Phoenix as well, and you get places like Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey in Nevada.
Oh, no question. I mean, both JD and I, we're Midwest guys. I grew up in Michigan. JD's a Midwest guy as well, too. And it seems like, every time I'm out and about, there's a ton of people from the Midwest in this town. So
do you think that the impact of people moving to Vegas has a lot to do with the fact that the Knights are now in Vegas, the Raiders are going to be in Vegas very soon, a couple more professional sports teams are probably on their way? Do you think that has an impact on people moving here?
It helps in one area in particular. It's in the area of business services. So that the city for a long time had a stigma in that sports weren't even allowed to be played in it, professional sports, because of the concern that it would be corrupted by sportsbook. And
right.
The fact that we've now not only overcome that we're allowed to have all kinds of professional sports, but that we're picking up the teams because we're a big enough city. We're double the size of a Buffalo, and they've got a football team. So
right.
It's a signal to, people who are looking at branch offices and saying, well, maybe Vegas isn't just the Strip, and maybe it's not just about gambling, but it's a kind of decent-sized city, big enough to have an NFL franchise. I can take clients to the game. Also, its airport is better than the airports in Pittsburgh or Detroit, because we have nonstops to every city in the United States, even though we don't have a major hub except for Southwest. We have, so we don't have one of the legacy airlines like American or United as a hub. We have nonstops back to all their hubs. So everybody will fly direct to the city. And that means a lot in business, because what you don't want to do in business, if you put a branch office somewhere, is change planes, because your employees get lost as they're, shuffling around airports all across America.
Right.
So it's a real advantage to the city that we built a tourism-based airport. Orlando has the same advantage. It's in the same position we are. And now we can begin exploiting that as, why don't you put a branch of an advertising firm here or banking?
So, I mean, do you think that at some point, and if you look at the business in Las Vegas, the commerce, a lot of it comes from, obviously, you have, we'll call Sands. Sands would be the equivalent of a Fortune 500 company, but there's not a Google, there's not a Facebook, there's not a major corporation hubbed in Las Vegas. Do you see something like that moving here anytime soon?
There is one corporation hub in Las Vegas.
Zappos.
It's the leading city in the world for companies specializing in resorts like MGM,
right.
Sands, Wynn. They're all in that category. Caesars, they're all in the category of Fortune 500 firms. And that's the funny thing. We actually are a very serious city for business, because just backing that up, like if you're even doing, let's say, Indian gaming, you have to come to Las Vegas so we can tell you how to do your taxes. You have to come to Las Vegas to buy the gaming equipment, because we manufacture it at Scientific Games. So the city actually is corporate headquarters in a highly specialized area. But we have branches all over the world. They're in China. They're in Singapore. They'll soon be in Japan. I was watching the Nationals games during the World Series. There was a giant sign in Nationals Park for MGM. Just south of Washington, D.C., at National Harbor, is an enormous MGM facility. So we are actually not just, exporting our service as people come to our city and consume. It's actually treated as export economy, and come in, stay in a hotel in Las Vegas and gamble and shop and do all the things they do. We're also the actual leading city in the world for how to put a resort together, even its architecture, even its HVAC systems, even how to do it green, and then send it to China and send it to Singapore and send it all over the United States. So it's far more of a corporate headquarters city, except it's not in tech. So we don't have aerospace except for Bigelow. We don't have software. But what we have is a highly specialized economy like you do in a Texas city around oil. That's more than just oil extraction. It's, how to put out an oil fire, how to transport oil, how to process oil. So I've always compared us to places like Houston, as a highly specialized single sector but large scale, globally dominant city in that one sector.
It is remarkable, Doctor, to see the growth. You mentioned, of course, Buffalo, New York. I mean, there's a lot of cities in America where, there is a, depopulation, right? I mean, the people are leaving the city centers. You brought up Detroit, of course. That's a city trying to be on the rebound, but they have lost millions of people in that city. You mentioned cities like Milwaukee and maybe even Portland, Oregon, others where Vegas is much bigger than those cities from a population standpoint. So it's pretty extraordinary to kind of see how that's developing.
There are metros where they lose not just out of the central city. Mm-hmm. In the case of Buffalo or Cleveland, you're talking about people, the suburbs don't even grow in those places. So there are areas of the United States that are actually losing population, and they're especially concentrated around the Great Lakes. And by contrast, we're booming.
It's astounding to see. Look, I moved to Las Vegas in 2003. I had a house out here on El Capitan and Flamingo, just a smattering of restaurants and bars and places to go out here. It was, the infancy of the 215 wrapping around the corner here. And now, obviously, here in 2019, it is, you got Red Rock Resort. You have, obviously, Summerlin has expanded tremendously. It's just, it's amazing to see the growth in this town from not just a real estate standpoint, but just from, an expansion across the valley.
Yeah, Orlando and Las Vegas are two newest cities in that the majority of their space for housing and commercial real estate and all that has been built post-1990. So we're really a city of the last 30 years. I have a Landsat map in my office that shows Las Vegas in 1990. And, it's a city without a beltway. There's nothing really south of the airport, essentially, just a little bit of development around northern Green Valley, which was just taking off. So, when you drive around Las Vegas, you're dealing in, not just a city that's booming, but you're dealing in one of the newest, largest urban spaces in the country because it just didn't exist 2-3 decades ago.
How many people do you believe will move to Vegas over the next decade? How fast do you think the population will grow, and to what number?
You're looking at, just like over 2.2 mil now, and you're looking at about 50 to 60,000 a year, depending on how the economy goes, depending on if we sustain our growth through a recession, which we used to do in the past until the Great Recession in 2008, 2009. You're looking at early to mid next decade, you're looking at we crossed the 3 million mark.
Dr. Robert Lang joining us. He is the executive director at Brookings Mountain West at UNLV, also a professor there, and it's coming straight from him. There are now more adults in Nevada who were born in California than native Nevadans. Doctor, we really appreciate you spending some time the day before Thanksgiving. We hope you have a great holiday, and we'll talk to you again soon, okay?
Sure, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Doc.
Yes, Dr. Robert Lang joining us there. Hey, here's the deal. People love Vegas. It's a growing town. It's a city. It's a dynamic city, right, JD? People want to come here. Look, the sports angle, no doubt. We have an NHL team now here. We're going to get an NBA team. There's been the talk
we're going to get a
Major League
Baseball,
obviously, in building a stadium. But when it comes to the Raiders,
do you know what's going to happen?
Are you kidding me? If I thought, 10 years ago that there'd be an NFL franchise, they'd be playing football on NFL Sundays in Las Vegas at a stadium just off the Strip, people would say that I'm insane, that I'm out of my mind. That's going to be reality sooner than later. It's crazy. And that's what makes,
and there's a chance if the Rio gets torn down and a Major League Baseball stadium goes there, that right across from each other, you will have a Major League Baseball stadium, you will have the Palms, and you will have the Raiders stadium just on one block. I mean,
it's a perfect spot for a Major League stadium down there. You'll get the skyline of the Strip in the background.
Do you know what would happen if, like he's, and I think that 50 to 60,000 a year right now is light. I think it's more like 120 to 150. I'm telling you, this city, there is traffic in parts of Vegas that there wasn't 3 months ago. I mean, I'm not, like when I drive down to work, when I drive down Durango from Tropicana to get here every day. I mean, there is actually traffic that there's never been before. I mean, these DMVs are full to the brim. Whenever they are open, it takes you 6 hours if you go there to get in, to do anything. You have to make an appointment.
No, that's what you do, right, JD? You make the appointment. You do the phone thing. You get the text so that you can roll in there 5 minutes before your time.
No, that doesn't work like that. Even if you make an appointment, it's going to take you 2 hours. I mean, these DMVs are completely packed, Chris. And if our population passes 3 million, we're a top 15 market at that point.
Absolutely, no question. It's the Vegas Take coming away live here on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN. Interesting conversation there, though, with the doctor as far as, people coming in force to Las Vegas. And as you pointed out, it's going to be intriguing, to say the least, to see what the population does as far in the next 10 years or so, and how it all works. Look, it is a value, though. It's a limit, I think. I guess you could keep going north and a little bit south.
There's a lot of space.
There's a little bit of a boundary, though.
But there's a ton of space available right now to build whatever you want to build. I don't think there's a ton of limitations to Vegas.
I could see that. So there already are some nice suburban areas.
Go to the top of the
You got where JD and the family where they live.
Right.
You got Henderson. You got Summerlin. You got some good spots.
But go to the top of the stratosphere sometime and just walk around in a circle, and you can see exactly how deep and how far these valleys go. There's room for a ton of expansion in Las Vegas, in my opinion.
Much more on the way. It's Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro along with JD Sharp live here in studio. In the 11 o'clock hour, we'll be getting into heavy sports because that's, look, when it's a Thanksgiving holiday, there's so much to go over. So we'll be wired in, and of course we'll get JD's thoughts on the number one team in college basketball going down last night. UNLV got the win last night. Also, they pulled away in the second half, get the victory over Jackson State. That and much, much more as the Vegas Take continues on your Wednesday on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, K-Dawn.